everyone. That's good. Greetings from Ukraine. Nice to see all of you, all our friends, and all our participants. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, hope that everybody hearing me. And please, if it is possible, please note plus in the chat if you're here and see me, please. Because I see a lot of participations, but not all of them, I think, hear me. If it is possible. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I see your messages. So let's start. My name is Ina Rudakova. I'm going to lead through today's meeting. We are so pleased to welcome all of you in our first online conference. We are grateful for your attention and interest in showing to our Volyn deposit in Ukraine. I remind you that the theme of our today's conference is Chamber Permatities of Volyn deposit. As you know, Volyn deposit is one of the most well-known and well-studied precious gem deposits in the world. You know that we mined more than 100 minerals, but the most famous, and I think most of you knew about that is our unique and huge crystals of quartz marine, smoky quartz, white color topaz, wine topaz, and of course, our famous beryls. And we have dreamed to bring people together who are interested in our Volyn deposit, and they want to research and know a lot about our deposit. So we are so glad to see today participants from different places, from Europe, from USA, from Canada, from Russians, greeting to you from Ukraine. And among us today, there are geologists, collectors, dealers, and new participants who are just getting acquainted with features of our Volyn deposit. This format has allowed us to bring together people from different countries, and they are ready to share their experience and research. So let's welcome each other because we are really ready to see all of you. Let's come back. We wish all participations of our conference fruitful work, creative and productive discussion. So we hope that it will be really interesting for you, and we will be able to create conditions for constructive dialogue and exchange of experience. And please, all questions which you will have to our speakers, you can ask after their speech, or you can write in a message. So after that, let me declare our conference open. So let's welcome again each other. Really nice to see all of you. So let's start. Well, now I would like to present our first speaker. I think that most of you knew him. He is a really famous geologist, our local hero. He studied and worked in our deposit more than 20 years. So he has a really big practice. Person who will make you wonder always, and geologists that never lose their luster. So welcome our friend and really one of the best specialists of pegmatites, especially in Volyn deposit, Всеволод Chernousенko, with his son Alexander. They will start our conference.
We want to thank you, Ina, for the beginning of conference, and we'll start our introduction to the Volyn deposit. My father is a chief geologist of Volyn deposit, and he will start it.
Здравствуйте. В моем сегодня докладе будет мне активно помогать Александр, юный геолог, который на Волыни уже с 2012 года. И как бы начну свой доклад, наверное, кратко об истории нашего месторождения. Я думаю, предоставлю об этом рассказать Александра. И потом я более детально остановлюсь на некоторых проблемах.
So, I'm Alexander. I'm a young geologist. I'm working in the mine from 2012 year, and I will start the introduction of the history of Volyn deposit, and after that, my father will continue about most interesting questions. So let's start the show. So the Volyn deposit was was opened in 1911 year. The first important find was a crystal of topaz, which was about 300 grams. It was mined in the north part of the deposit, and it was found by the geologist Ivan Belsky Stepan Vladimirovich. He decided that there is a deposit here in this region, and he started looking for the money for the beginning of mining here. So he found that he started mining in 1931 year. The geologist who was the chief geologist there by that time was found the pocket in the first year, and this pocket produced more than 100 kilograms of topaz, and the biggest crystal of topaz was 3 kilograms. Here on this photo we can see some of the crystals which were found in the first years of mining in Volyn deposit. The crystal of topaz, this crystal of topaz is more than 50 kilograms, and it's the crystal of quartz, which is more than 500 kilograms. So, till the 1935 year of mining in Volyn deposit, all the production was, all the mining was done to look for the topaz for the selling to the British banks. And just after 1935 year, in Soviet Union, they began to produce piezo quartz for the war industry. And from that time, the big open pits and the big production was started in Volyn deposit. So here we can see some mining on the placer. It's a photo of 1952 year. It was a big placer with a big amount of quartz, more than 20 tons of moron. Yeah, and till the first years, until the 1970 year, all the production was made in open pits, and they were looking for the kaolin pegmatites and for the places of moron. So in 1972 year, the first mine was built in our deposit. Here we can see the mine number 2. This mine have 2 levels. The first level is on the depth of 60 meters. The second level is on the depth of 100 meters. And there were built 3 mines, and each mine have 2 levels. All the length of the tunnels in our deposit is about 42 kilometers, and each mine opens more than 100 pegmatites. More than 150 pegmatites, my father said. So here we can see the map showing the tunnels of the mines. Here we can also, in this map, we can see the central part of the deposit, where the 6th and 2nd mine are located. Actually, the second mine is, the 2nd and the 6th mine are the most interesting for the beryl mineralization because in this mine there were opened a lot of beryl pockets. Actually, in the mine number 2, the mine number 2 situated right here. There are 2 pockets in the mine number 2 with beryl, and one of them is the biggest one in all deposit. The number of the pocket is 5 to 1, 521st pegmatite. It produced more than 2 tons of beryl, and the other pocket in the second mine is number 445, and it produced more than 100 kilograms. And on the 6th mine, which is located right here, there are about 5 beryl pockets, but the production from them is not big, but some of the most beautiful crystals were mined there. So here we can see the structure as simply plan of corresponding Pluton and the pegmatite regions in it. Here we can see the Volyn deposit, Volyn's deposit, and it's interesting to show you that there can be found some more pegmatite regions in this area around the Pluton. The Pluton is made by the labradorite and other rocks, and the pegmatites are located in the contact between the labradorites and anaptazite with granite, paleogen granite. So here we can see the 1.5 kilogram heliodor crystal, which was mined in a pegmatite 5 to 1, about which I have said before. It's the last one big crystal which was mined here in the deposit, and it's the biggest one for the past 10 years. Here we can see some production of topaz and different shapes of topaz, and it's interesting to see that in Adunchelon type of topaz, the color is blue one and picolic one. This crystal is more than 300 kilograms, and it's the biggest crystal in all Volyn deposit. And here we can see one beautiful crystal which was mined on the second mine in the pocket number 394, and it has a wine color, and it's the usual color for the Ilmensky type of topaz. Some crystals of quartz which were mined in the second mine and in the third mine. So now I'll give my father to speak with you about the most interesting things in Volyn deposit.
Я буду говорить, Александр будет переводить. За время работы нашего месторождения был накоплен очень большой материал по расположению и минералам на Волынском месторождении.
As the mine was started, the deposit was opened and the mine was started in 1931st year. There are a lot of interesting scientific material was collected from about the deposit.
Я думаю, что это самое изученное месторождение пегматита.
He says that we think that is the most learned deposit of pegmatites all over the world.
С 1931 года было открыто, отработано, разведано несколько тысяч пегматитовых тел.
From the first time of mining in 1931st year, there were opened thousands of pegmatites and thousands of pockets in them.
Двух похожих друг на друга пегматитов на Волыне найдено не было.
All the pegmatites are individual, and we haven't seen any similar pegmatites.
Можно сказать, что большую часть времени работы велись на поверхностных объектах.
For the most time of mining, the works were done on the surface of the igneous rocks, in the cairn of igneous rocks, mining for pegmatites in the surface and placers of moraines.
И только в конце 60-х
And
да,
just in the end of 60s, some tunnels have done, and it opened us the opportunity to see not destroyed pockets and pegmatites, just like there in the igneous rocks.
Большинство научных работ, связанных с месторождением, было проведено в период с 51 по 71 год.
Almost all the scientific material which we have collected was collected from 1951st year till nowadays.
Наиболее полное научное исследование было опубликовано в книжке совместных авторов под редакцией Лазаренко «Минералогия генезис».
The biggest, the most informative book about the Volyn deposit was written by publication
под редакцией академика
after the redaction of academic Lazarenko by publication and other scientifics. And it's the most informative book about Volyn deposit.
Она была выпущена в 1973.
It was written in 1973 year.
После этого периода, как раз время работы в подземных, в шахтных выработках, данные не опубликовывались и зачастую не изучались. То есть данные, которые были получены в результате дальнейших работ в шахтных выработках с 1971 года, не опубликовывались и не были известны широкой
As the deposit was producing the material for the industry, for the war industry, all the scientific information was closed about it, and nobody can read it from other countries.
Эти работы, связанные с отработкой пегматитов в коренных породах, принесли новые данные.
But all this information, which was collected in pegmatites in igneous rocks, in not destroyed pegmatites in igneous rocks, was very important.
Появились новые интересные темы, которые требуют своих дальнейших исследований.
There were found a lot of interesting themes which needs some more explanation.
Таких тем очень много.
There are a lot of themes like this.
Ну, Вот некоторые из них, на мой взгляд, достаточно интересные для публики, я бы хотел сегодня осветить.
The most interesting of them I'd like to show today.
Одна из таких тем – это формы растворения кристаллов берилла.
One of the themes which is very interesting is the forms of etching of heliodor crystals from Volyn deposit.
Я хотел бы это продемонстрировать на примере очень интересного пегматитового тела номер
We'd
364.
like to show you the forms of etching from the pegmatite number 364.
Этот пегматит был отработан разведан при Советском Союзе в 1966 году.
This pegmatite was opened and mined in 1966 year.
При первоначальной отработке было добыто около 2 килограмм кристаллов берилла.
In the first year of mining in this pocket, there were mined about 2 kilograms of crystals of beryl.
В этот пегматит мы вернулись с целью ревизии по геологической информации, вернулись в 2007 году.
We decided to work in this pocket again in 2007 year. And here on the picture you can see how it looks like inside. There were a lot of water in it, and the rock was very unstable. So we used to do it more safely. Like here you can see.
Можно вернуться назад. Вот я бы хотел показать пегматитовое тело расположения. Данные о строении пегматитового тела были получены путем бурения, алмазным бурением с отбором керна, скважин с поверхности Земли. Это вот план. И видно расположение разведочных скважин и контур пегматитового тела.
The pocket was opened by the pegmatite number 364 was opened by the surface drilling, and the wells of this drilling gave the first information about this pegmatite. And here on the plan you can see the form of this pegmatite.
Ну, горные выработки, которыми был разведан пегматит, нарисованы вот желтым контуром.
The tunnels by which this pegmatite was opened are here on the plan. You can see them, they are yellow ones.
На разрезах видно строение пегматитового тела,
You can see
его занорыша.
the
The
structure of the pegmatite, and you can also see the pocket, which is underlined now.
И видно уходящая вниз огромная зона выщелачивания.
And you can see the huge zone of leaching under this pocket.
К сожалению, формат конференции не позволяет задержаться на таких интересных вещах, как зона выщелачивания, зона занорыша.
Unfortunately, we can't do our presentation too long, so we can't discuss for a lot of time the leaching zone and the pocket zone.
Но объект интересен наличием в нем берилла. Когда мы вошли в занорыш, увидели следующее. Когда мы вошли в этот пегматит, то вот столкнулись с большими трудностями.
So what this pocket is, this pegmatite and pocket inside of it is interesting because it contains some beryls inside of it.
Да, переходим к следующему. Этот берил демонстрируется в качестве образца, он не из этого объекта.
This crystal of beryl is showing us, just showing us the head of the beryls which are not etched. Actually, this crystal wasn't mined in this pocket, it's just the sample to do our speech more informative.
Мы здесь видим грани призмы,
We can see here the faces of prisma,
грани пинакоида
the faces of pinacoid,
и грани пирамиды.
and the faces of pyramid. So, and these crystals which were actually mined in this pocket, and here you can see how deep the etching was inside of them.
Уникальной особенностью для Волыни именно этого пегматита
And it's the unique characteristic of the beryl from this pocket.
необычные формы растворения кристаллов берила.
The forms of etching are really unusual for the Volyn deposit.
Мы видим здесь остаток вершины фрагмента кристалла с остатком.
Here we can see the etched crystal with the left face of the head of this crystal. Is the head of the crystal, you can see here the pinacoid and the pyramid.
И отсутствует грани призмы.
And all the faces of prism were etched.
На соседней картинке
On another picture, on the right picture,
мы видим фрагмент, растворенный фрагмент кристалла берила, в котором отсутствовала изначально вершина.
On this picture, we can see on the right picture, we can see the crystal of beryl, which before etching, which doesn't have a head.
Особенностью этих кристаллов являлись наличие сильно развитой заигленности, развитой по пинакоиду. Именно по пинакоиду и по граням.
The also important characteristic of crystals of beryl from this pocket is the appearance of a big amount of small holes of etching in the pinacoid of the crystal and in the pyramid of the crystal.
Это предыдущий кристалл, где видно остатки грани пирамиды, пинакоида и дальнейшее развитие растворения.
It's the same crystal as from the last picture, and but from another side. And here we can see also the pyramids and pinacoids parts, but there aren't any prisma faces.
Надо сказать, что этот кристалл был найден внутри большой размером около метра псевдоморфоз.
It's interesting that this crystal was mined in a big pseudomorphose. The pseudomorphose was of monomerolith, kaolinite, and muscovite. Pseudomorphose after beryl crystal, and it was just a nodule which have left in a big pseudomorphose which was more than 1 meter in long.
На этой картинке мы видим фрагмент кристалла берила из этого же занорыша, в котором отсутствует, изначально не было вершины.
On this picture, we can also see that there is no that the crystal before etched and didn't have any head.
Мы видим отсутствие вот игл в этом кристалле.
Also, the important characteristic of pearls from this pocket was that the crystal didn't have any small gas water inclusions, which we call snow in our deposit.
Необычным является форма растворения этого кристалла.
It's unusual forms of etching of this crystal is even unusual for this pocket.
Среди большого количества добытого берила это является характерной особенностью для кристаллов, у которых не было изначальной вершины.
It shows us the usual form of etching of the crystal which didn't have a head before the etching.
Вот тоже на фото кристалл, в котором изначально не было вершины. Мы видим также выделение. Вот.
In this photo, we can also see the crystal which didn't have a head before the etching have started.
Кристаллы, которые имели вершину, растворялись с образованием вот таких форм правления.
The crystals which had a head before the etching have started have such an unusual form of etching. Here you can see that the head of the crystal is here.
Сейчас мы вернемся к картинке.
We'll continue our presentation. Just a second, please.
Эта особенность растворения таким образом кристаллов берила является характерной только для одного пегматитового тела.
It's a usual form of etching just for one pocket all over the Volyn deposit.
Можно ли вернуться к карте? Надо сказать, что это не является, находка такой формы растворения не является особенностью какого-то одного места в этом пегматите.
We need to say that such forms of etching are usual for all the pockets, not just for one part of it.
Да. Подобные формы находились по периметру всех вот этих органов.
Such forms of etching and bills were seen all around the tunnels in this area.
Почему образовались именно такие формы? Предстоит узнать в будущем.
Nobody knows why such an interesting forms of etching have formed in this pocket, and we hope that people which are here and people who love minerals and geology will also think about it and help to find the answer for this question.
Мое выступление подходит к концу. Я постарался зацепить, затронуть одну только такую тему.
Our presentation is going to the end because we decided just to speak about this interesting theme.
Много вопросов связано с тем, почему наши занорыши в наших пегматитах имеют такой большой размер.
There are a lot of questions about, and we also want to discuss some questions about our deposit in general, such as why the pockets in our deposit are so big, and why the pegmatites have just one, maximum two pockets.
По моему мнению, это связано косвенным образом с наличием углерода.
We think that it's because of the carbon in pegmatites.
При обследовании пегматитов, сотен пегматитов,
While mining in the hundreds of pegmatites,
скрытых шахтными выработками,
which were opened by the tunnels of the mines,
практически везде были обнаружены либо остатки, либо выделения кюрита.
almost in all pockets there were some finds of chloride, of the mineral chloride, about which the Peter will speak in his presentation.
Yes. Кроме этого, в 1961 году
And it also in 1961 year,
одна из скважин
one of the drilling wells,
пробуренная на глубину 615 метров,
which was drilled to the depth of 615 meters,
скрыла занорыш в пегматите, заполненный газом.
opens the pocket in a pegmatite filled with gas.
Объем газа был настолько большой,
There was so much gas in it
что буровой инструмент был выброшен из скважины.
And all the drilling was dropped it from the well.
И в течение 20 минут происходило выброс газа из скважины.
And about 20 minutes there was gas going from the drilling.
Свидетели, люди чувствовали запах яиц.
The people who were doing the drilling smelled some old eggs.
Это свидетельствует о наличии сероводорода.
It shows us that there were some сероводород in this pocket.
Я думаю, что гранитная магма, поднимаясь кверху, что в пегматитах газ расширялся по мере поднятия гранитной магмы к поверхности.
We think that the gas was gone to the pocket while the magma was going from the lower part of the earth.
Таким образом, размер занорышей в пегматиты связаны с заполнением их углеводородными газами.
So we think that the sizes of the pockets are such big because of some carbon gas inside of them.
Это только некоторые из множества интересных тем.
It's just the beginning of the presentation about the Volyn deposit, and we hope that the other speakers will open a lot of interesting information about it. Thank you.
Again, hello to everyone. Oh, it is really great because I see new people. So nice to hear you. Nice to see you again and come back to our schedule. So next, our speaker. I think also all of you knew him. He is our friend during a lot of years, and he knew a lot about our deposit. So his name is Peter Lindberg. Let's welcome him. Peter Lindberg, National Museum of National History. So Peter really knew a lot about our deposit because during 36 years he studied pegmatites and he visited different countries. He was in USA, he was in Brazil, in Namibia, and in different places. And during all this time, he studied pegmatites. Frankly speaking, I think he one of the most of the best people who really studied and researched our deposit during a lot of years, and he visited us. So welcome, Peter, and I think for all of us will be really very interesting to hear your talk, your report. Again, I would like to tell that the theme of his report will be the chamber pegmatites of Volyn deposit. So welcome, Peter, and please.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Ina. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will speak, but of course it's the images. My presentation is always showing a lot of images. Anyway, Vsevolod and Alexander already introduced us to some of the history of the western endocontact of Rapaki, the granites of the Corostine Pluton, 1.7 billion years old. So those are some of the oldest gem-carrying pegmatites in the world, together with those in Finland, which are also in Rapaki granites. The difference is that in Volyn, you see on the western side, most pegmatites were mined, but they also occur in the south, probably in the north. Of course, the granite is weathered, so you have a cover of 10 to 40 meters of clay, residual clay. And most of the mining in the early days was from former pegmatites that had weather, where the center of the pockets with quartz and topaz beryl were left still in situ in the clay, and all the feldspars and micas of the granites weathered away. So I only participated in the mining since 1995. I had some old historical pictures. We will probably skip them. And Professor Simmons joined me on my first trip to Voldas in 1995 after having traveled 1 month in Siberia and Urals, so 1 month of pegmatites in Eastern Europe and Siberia. So, of course, it's a very, very special deposit. When I came the first time, I wonder how in the world did they find everything, and then later I was told that it was by core drilling. So core drilling, of course, the main activities was probably later 60s, 70s, 80s. So piezo quartz was needed for industrial purposes and military purposes. And something like 75% of all the piezo quartz in Soviet time was mined from here. There were 1,500 pegmatites mined in Kazakhstan as well, and plenty of hydrothermal quartz veins in the Urals, in South Urals, in Polar Urals. So an enormous intensity of mining for piezo quartz. And at the time, you would get imprisoned if you would steal a piece of piezo quartz, because this was supposed to be, or at the time, strategic material, while topaz and beryl was not important at all for the mining. And it was given away to visiting geologists. Now, not too many geologists were allowed. In principle, you were only allowed to visit down in the mine if you had some real business there, if you were involved as to help in the mining efforts. So when I tried to visit already, I was invited to come and visit in 1985 by this Polish geologist, but that would mean that I would go with him across the border from Poland. I could go to Poland from Sweden easily and go into Ukraine. He said, oh, you just say "Yeah, Balt, I'm from the Baltic states," and not knowing any Russian or Ukrainian, maybe I could get by that, but I did not look forward to a future in a Siberian labor camp, for unknown time. So I waited 10 years and I managed to get in contact with a gemologist in Kiev, and later he gave me the address to the to the director of the Kvarts Samosvetny. And it was a very, very interesting visit. Of course, this was shortly after Soviet Union fell apart, so it was completely different from what is now in Ukraine. All the former Soviet state has developed immensely in different ways, but this mining effort also with so many tunnels at 2 main levels and 3rd level, it was, and even just the core drilling, if you would count on small cores, it was an effort of 500 million, $500 million, or even with this big size that we're using, this is in modern terms a matter of $1 billion or 2 billion euro for finding all those pegmatites. Anyway, it was necessary, it was needed material. And it wasn't only when I told you in 1985 that I saw the first Helidor, and later, especially in the 90s, mostly mineral dealers from Poland were bringing Helidor and some topaz to mineral shows in the West. And there was one Austrian young fellow, René Triebel. He was traveling, he bought from one young Russian mineral dealer, and then later he found out that there was in Moscow, you could buy in Titsky Rynok, there was a market where you could buy those beautiful Heliodor crystals. He went there many times by train and bought. And I did not visit Soviet Union or Russia more. I only managed to get to St. Petersburg one time in '86, but I was not, unfortunately, in Kiev. Anyway, I will now, if we can get any images, I will show you, and I will tell you some of the experience since 1995. And I've been following the mining. I've seen a lot. I've seen hundreds of pockets in several of the shafts. And I've kept very frequent contacts with the mining company to be able to really follow. I did the same in other pegmatites as well previous to this, and I had very long-term interest in different deposits. I mostly studied in Scandinavia first, and I was in the Urals. I was in California pegmatites from 1987, of course, mostly about tourmaline and kunzite and so on. But when you see many different types of pegmatites, it adds to the interest. And we haven't said yet, but the Volyn Chamber Permatities are really, really special in that they have crystallized within the granites, probably within the mother granite. We will hear later about the geology of the whole coruscating Pluton and the granitoids. And I started before saying that the chamber pegmatites themselves, they're located along the edges of the granite intrusion. Now, that means that probably was eroded a bit, because for surely there was some towards the apex, the upper part also, and that's what you see in Finland in the Viborg Massive. Most of the pegmatites that we found so far are more in the center of the granite, so weathering is not as deep as in Volyn, is my interpretation. Now, it's not necessarily so that you would have an equal spread of pegmatites along the roof zone and all along the edges. Of course, we know many where you haven't found, but whether it's only due to erosion or not, we cannot be completely sure. But anyway, I'm looking at some of my images here. I had plenty of historical images. I had many images from pockets, and the largest topaz in the oldest was, well, there were several over 100 kilo found. One is in Moscow State University. This geological collection has a lot of ore sample, doesn't have much of mineral specimen, but there's one giant topaz crystal exhibited there. And then in 2013, this giant topaz, which you saw Alexander behind, 76 centimeter diameter and 325 kilo in weight, is the largest bicolor topaz that I know of. And there was one piece broken off at the bottom of that crystal, weighing 50 kilo. And I know the chief geologist, Vsevolod Chernosenko, he was laughing at me because I had a lunch. Lunch was very simple. It was in principle only a bottle of water. But I sat and had lunch on this 50-kilo blow topaz, because that's not many chances in life you have that. Anyway, the mine has shown me, and the visits to the mine has shown me many interesting features. The structure of the chambers, the structure of the pegmatites themselves, the zonation. Now, Vsevolod touched upon it, and Alexander, that we saw the cross section of the extreme leaching. So all of these pegmatites, in principle, there is just a couple that are untouched by heavy leaching. There was a secondary, after the crystal formation, there was a leaching of the bottom. So the quartz was leached out and recrystallized in the ceiling. And of course, later, many have collapsed, the quartz crystals, giant quartz crystals, up to 10 ton. Now, normally there's some to a few 100 kilo, and some pockets had a couple of crystals, so 3 ton, 5 ton, and so on. And when it comes to piezo quartz, it's the piezo quality is only termination, which means that many of those huge, beautiful crystals in the oldest, they were broken off just to take the non-twin parts at the termination. Now, for us who are interested in the geology, we like to see the complete crystals, and the morphology of the quartz in Volyn is also very interesting. There are even Japanese law twins, and they're left-handed, right-handed, Brazilian law twins, Tessiner habitus, and so on. Now, Vsevolod touched upon the hydrocarbons, and I described, in fact, I found already in 1970s a hydrocarbon pegmatite in Sweden, which I compare. There, the hydrocarbons are solid. Still, they're in the graphic structure around the pockets. There are small chunks in the pockets. I wrote a paper in the ZVMO, the Russian Mineralogical Society. I did that study and research in 97. I think it was published in 2001. So I've been speaking about, hydrocarbon pegmatites for 30 years. And in fact, one time when I went to Ukraine, my intention was to find chlorite. And I spoke with Vsevolod, we have to find chlorite in other places. And Vsevolod, he had observed small, minute black, and when I went there, we did find chlorite that very first time I intended to do so. And then later in many pockets, of course, Vsevolod, he have seen much more than I can visit for a few days every month if I'm lucky. Right now, it's been hard. I have not been for a year. I flew out in March 2020, the last time, for a weekend visit, and the border closed down for 3 months, a few hours after I left. So sometimes I managed to visit many days, but the cooperation has been fantastic and allowed me to document, and I strongly urge Vsevolod to photograph and document pockets, and he has done a terrific job. And it's not only about documenting, because it is to observe, to be very observant. And that is needed, of course, to find the material that the mining company wants to find. But also for the scientific studies, you need to be extremely observant and to find beryl or topaz. You may spend 1 month in a pocket where there is beryl topaz without finding it if you're not really observant and looking at the right places. Very good. So I hope everybody else can do that as well. Then I will go here. Here is the Karsten. Then I will, because we already spent quite some time here. So the old mining, I go very fast now. And the piezo quartz, the first barrels that came out summer 85. I saw a much bigger one the summer 85. This is Skip Simmons' photograph on our first visit. And this is the first topaz pocket I saw underground in 95, bicolor topaz. A giant Tellidor, and here's the clay overburden, digging in the clay, trying to find. I will go very fast now, and here it's very harsh conditions. I must say it was a state run for most of the time, then it became partly privately run, and I think it's completely privately run now. And of course, conditions in the old days were probably good from 95. The mining effort was really down, so there was not much pumping of oxygen, and only the last decade has been again pumping oxygen, so there's enough air. Only in winter you could work reasonably. In the summers, very hard. And you can see a photo. Oops, now something happened. Now I see Skip's screen here. So anyway, you can see my face is very red. There was strip search. Every little crystal was put in a safety box, taken out of the mine and strip search everybody. Was completely okay, of course. The problem is it was not possible to bring any feldspar or quartz out of the mine. So I photographed interesting feldspars and micas and so on. Here's topaz in the mine. And here are old photographs of topaz crystals. And the pockets are enormous. Normally we speak about pockets that are 1 or a few meter. And here are pockets, and the largest pocket we haven't mentioned, but it's in pegmatite 521. And there are 2 sections. They haven't broken the wall, maybe 2-meter wall. This is a small corner of the giant pocket 521, which is in fact about 85 meter. That's enormous pocket, 15-20 meter to the ceiling. Level difference, we estimate at least 25 meters, but it hasn't been dug out because you can imagine such a giant chamber at almost 100 meter depth that there's some stability. So you need to backfill and move. And anyway, here is in one pocket that Sevelo spoke about before, where this deep etching was on the barrels. Here is a big barrel in situ. And here it is, the leach zone reached 36 meter. And the gem barrels were just under the floor, and the oldest they hadn't mined them. Okay, I jumped this one. Here's the big topaz in Moscow State University, big heliodors, and the museum in Volodyarsk. And here are examples of the best. So now you see the chamber. You can see that there's a quartz core above the chamber. And main key here is that they're giant. Here's giant pocket working in pegmatite 521. Here is a chamber that hasn't been opened. You can see the structure. Here's the leach zone under the albatization under the pocket. Here's the detail of the contact of the leach zone. Giant crystals fallen down. And here's a 1.4 meter crystal that took about a week for 40 men to bring out of the mine. Here is a beautiful area of Khoroshev. And this granite intrusion is, in fact, you have to go a little uphill so you notice the geological structure when you come there. Here's a heated and non-heated heliodor. And some pockets, they're very different shape pockets. We haven't fully described this yet, but here's a big topaz pocket. Here's another pocket. It was one topaz pocket like this, like a shaft down, another one, not only quartz. Here's a big smoky quartz left in the pocket, and you can see the oxygen was like working at 5,000 meter. A few tiny barrels are gathered on the floor in that pocket. And here's the first time that we could document barrel in situ, okay? The albite floor was leached away, but we could, by looking at the geology, find the barrel in situ. So those are the first images from barrel in situ in this mine. Here was a broken crystal, and here is a 15-meter high topaz pocket. I worked there during many visits to try to find some special small things just to analyze. Just some tiny samples. I took some cross sections of the pegmatite. Now we come to tests, and you need to see here how you dig this pocket. Of course, you need to be very, very careful digging a pocket, not to destroy it. So here you would dig with your hands, everything loose. If you can see my pointer up to how to dig almost, there's a part of the pegmatite, and then we come into the pocket zone. So if you would start working here, you see the big, almost vertical smoky quartz. If you start working 7-8 centimeter from that, you would have hit this topaz crystal. That's a 29 kilo topaz that later, unfortunately, broke in a section because it was put in a bucket with water to clean it. But you cannot do that because there's so many gas and fluid inclusions that if you do that with specimens, they really risk of shattering. So here is before it was put in a bucket, and a smoky from the same. And here are a couple of pictures. I show this one, and here is a topaz pocket. We found some fantastic things here. It was the first time we found what I've been dreaming of, to find the minerals really in situ. Here is an old topaz crystal fracture. Here is a big wall with topaz crystals that makes it hard to take them out without destroying. And here is a piece of a boulder that's now in the mining company with one topaz very nicely. And here is Sevelo. And here I'm carrying out a part of this topaz, and it's now preserved at the mining company. And the specimen that came out from this pocket were here. One of the geologists, he called it Peter's dream pocket because I had been dreaming to find such a pocket in situ. Here is another pocket where everything is, the former topaz is now chloratized. So you can see here with molybdenite. tiny, tiny bits of topaz just inside. And we saw a few larger pieces. Now, around the pockets, what is interesting from mineralogical viewpoint, that there are fracture zone around, and you can have a variety of minerals. You can have siderite, you can have goethite. Goethite, okay, it's a group of minerals. You can have fluorite and so on around the pocket. And here was one pocket that was, in fact, they mined up to pegmatite right next to us, and this pocket had only calcite and fluorite. So there was not feldspars, quartzes, and so on. Okay, here is just showing some of the mining conditions. Here is having lunch in the town. I had many times lunch in the mine. And of course, open pit mining. There was an effort a few years ago with nice smoky quartz here with a big barrel, and the team are happy. Of course, the non-transparent barrel doesn't pay for mining. One thing I haven't said, mining is extremely expensive. So the sad thing is both with governments to allow and all kinds of people, they think that gemstone mining is where you make a lot of money quickly. No, it is not at all. If you want to make a lot of money every day, every week, every month, every year for a long time, you just mine granite, you crush it for road or concrete. That's where you make money, or mine a metal. Mining gemstone takes huge input of money. And when you find something, you find the pocket, wow, 100 kilo topaz. It costs you so much that you're very lucky if you recover your money. So it's only brave people who do mining. Here's the best chief of security of any mine. He's a very, very serious guy, and you can see how he's checking out this smoky quartz. I love this photo I made. In fact, I was filming him, and I took snapshot while I was filming. So here is unique bicolor topaz from the open pit, and this is what one looks like with fluorite inclusions. Now, I don't go into detail, but it's very interesting mineralogy if we look into the inclusions as well. Here is one of those etched barrels and topaz, and here is by Albert Russ, master photographer. And I'll show you a few of the cut stones from the mine also. Here is a cut stone with fluorite inclusions. And here's more from the giant pocket, just for you to have a little idea how big it is. And the two miners to the left here, they're still working at the mine. And there are 2 of 5 men who found 900 kilo of gem heliodor during 5 days in pegmatite 521 in 1992. So there are some of the heroes who rescued some of these heliodors. And here is the crystal to the right you saw already, and the left as well. And here is another crystal. Those are the 3 best big crystals ever found in heliodor. To the right is a beautiful heliodor. And here is a shaft with topaz. Here is a cross section my son helped me draw, just so you can see the shape of that topaz pocket. So there were a couple topaz pocket which has completely different morphology. And here is topaz in situ. Now the largest topaz of this pocket was, I named it Sergeyev, the owner of the mine, 230 kilo. And it's not cleaned up, but you see the clean crystal to the right, 35 kilo here with Albert Russ. And here's a cut 9,000 carat stone. But also how much it cost a fortune to find such a stone. Now we will look at some of the most beautiful. I must say that for Europe, the Volyn deposit is by far the #1. I would say most interesting and most productive. There are at least 2 different species of completely gem quality and giant. So it's a unique deposit. In Finland, we found some fantastic heliodor, and in some quarries we found some topaz in different quarries, but this is one deposit nearby with all these natural colors of barrels and the topaz, barrel up to the left, down to the right. And look at the colors. Here, the color zonation of topaz, natural blue topaz, and here is a bicolored. In fact, it's unique in the world to have such strong color. And of course, it's because they're so old. And the orangey cognac colors induced by radiation. And here is from the giant pocket. And here is a find that one of our in the audience, Professor Axel Miller at the University of Oslo, Museum of Natural History, he was with me a couple of years ago, and 10 minutes after we went to the mine, this incredible crystal was found. I will just show you a couple of the other minerals. We come to Kurite that was found. This is Michael Label photograph. And there's some in Vernadsky Museum. They're in Kiev also. Here's by Dr. John Jazak, Kurite with fluorite, a sample that I collected. And his micro, I will come back to that later. And here's by Dr. Simon Filippo here in Museum of Natural History in Luxembourg. We studied some small samples. Now, here is by Brian Svoboda, all natural colors from this deposit. If you're not impressed by this, but imagine also it takes millions of euros of investment to find such things. And it takes a super geologist and good miners. So many years ago, there was one gentleman working for the director of the mine, and he asked me, Peter, is Vsevolod really worth his salary? And I said, I have no idea what he has in salary, but if you pay him the double, I know that he's worth that too. And that is something that tells everything about how good, because I met hundreds of geologists, and Vsevolod, and of course now Sash also is the real expert of this deposit. Vsevolod is almost lifelong, and it's not only, he studied many other deposits before this, and he traveled the world, and we often discuss many other deposits, very important. I want to thank Volyn Chamber, especially Sergei, Alena, Vsevolod, Inna, Alexandra, and all the miners, and also previous geologist miners on this deposit, because it's a lot of hardship to mine. It's very difficult. And of course, I'm employed not by the Museum of Natural History. I'm a scientific collaborator. So I have a completely other job, and I do this all on my spare time for my pocket money, and family money, which disappears. So I have to thank my children and of course my wife. And my wife is half Ukrainian. Most people don't know that. And then I want to congratulate my daughter who just graduated. And one last thing, which is not least important, it's very important to encourage the young. This is my son at age 1 year old. He started collecting quartz myself. And in fact, that's how my interest in geology started. I was 1 year old and a few months. And I started right here where the star is right next to me. In the granite gravel my grandfather brought and put on this gravel road, there was tiny muscovite to a centimeter quartz and feldspar. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I had to do it a little quick. I hope that you could all see the images finally and that it was enough of interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. It was interesting to see and to listen to.
Any questions? We have a couple of minutes, I think.
Peter, hi, that's excellent. Just a general question, how abundant the fluoride is in the pockets in general?
Yes, in general, Vsevolod would be even better, but there are some pockets that had fluoride. I would say there was one which was just a huge calcite and a lot of fluoride. There was a second pocket with a lot of fluoride, and pockets where there's some fluoride as very late stage, but not really that. And of course, in topaz pocket, I would think much of the fluorine is in the topaz. So, but Vsevolod knows better. Maybe Vsevolod and Sasha have some comments to that.
Dear Peter, really thanks. Very interesting for us especially. And I would like to ask you what plans you have. Do you have plans to visit Ukraine?
Of course, I will come in not too long. That's for sure.
Great.
Opening up again. It's been a year, so it's
great. Nice to see you. You know that we are really happy to see you in Ukraine, in Kyiv. So welcome.
Thank you. No more questions. We are a bit early, so maybe I took it too fast.
You have amazing presentation, really very beautiful and very interesting. You have so fantastic crystals, and it is really amazing, really amazing. Thanks a lot for your hard work, and these photos very interesting. And I think for people who understand about what we're talking about, it is really great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Professor Skip Simmons, are you ready already to give you?
I think I am.
All right, I will give then an introduction to you. So Professor William B. Simmons, he is a professor and professor emeritus of the University of New Orleans. where I got to know him I have to count, it's almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago. And he has been studying pegmatites most of his life, or all of his life. He is now at the he's research director at the Maine Mineral and Gem Museum, which is a rather recent museum up in Maine on the border with New Hampshire. And where they have, I haven't unfortunately not visited yet, but they have a fantastic exhibit and they have good research facilities. And Professor Simmons have described many new minerals. He has studied pegmatites all over the world. And he's in fact the only person that I traveled to 6 continents with. I met up on 6 continents. We traveled together on 5 continents to study pegmatites. And it's a great honor to have had the opportunity to share so many wonderful visits with Professor Simmons. So we're really looking forward for him to present mineralitic pegmatites, which are many types. You know, what we've done now presented with just within the mother granite. We could call them like big bubbles, and Professor Simmons will show us the great spectrum of pegmatites and what can be found in them. So most welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you see my presentation, Peter?
I cannot see it yet. I see you. So have you shared your screen yet?
Yes. I have.
So then it is.
See what's happening here. Let me get out. There's my. Okay, so you don't see my shared screen?
No, I see you. So Ina, you will need to choose. I see you in full screen, Skip. So I don't see your shared screen.
Okay.
Start. Okay, now we see it. Now, very
We
good.
see everything is okay. Everyone
Yes.
see and hear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Okay. That look right now? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about mineralitic pegmatites in general, not just these fantastic ones that are there in the Ukraine, and we'll see some examples from the Moat Mountain type mineralitic pegmatites in New Hampshire, and some of the mineralitic pegmatites from the Orongo Mountains, and make some comparisons to these enormous chamber pegmatites in the Volодарsk area. So we'll start out with this diagram to kind of get our feet on the ground about mineralitic pegmatites. This is the depth zone classification of Cherney and Ursit, 2005, and modified in 2012. And this is the classic classification of pegmatites according to temperature and pressure. And you see the mineralitic pegmatites are down here at the low pressure end of this, and at the lower temperature ranges. So this is classically the mineralitic pegmatites. What I want to emphasize today is that in addition to this, there are many rare element pegmatites that have mineralitic cavities in them. And so they need to be included in this kind of definition. If we look at the classification by Cherney in 91 and in 2005 and 2012, we see that here we have the mineralitic pegmatites, and in the original Cherney classification, it was just the NYF pegmatites, and then it was recognized that they needed to add also the lithium bearing mineralitic pegmatites. So these then are pegmatites that form at low pressures between 1 to 3 kilobars, or depths of 3 to 9 kilometers. This has been modified by Axel and Mike Wise and I, and part of our paper, our proposal for a new classification of pegmatites, which I'm going to give you a brief preview of, and just going to put them in terms of our new scheme that's coming out soon. This is in press and Can Min right now. And so this classification is based on residual melts from granitic plutons and melts formed by direct products of anataxis, from anataxis. So those are the two main categories. They're grouped into three groups. Group one from residual melt from granitic plutons is related to S-type granites. Group two to A-type granites. Group three to I-type granites. And the myelolytic pegmatites, the ones that I'll be talking about, a few of them today are here in this A-type granite relationship. These are interior pegmatites, are segregations that are forming right in the granite. So there's no question about the relationship of the pegmatites to the host, to the granite. And I'm going to be talking a little bit, giving you a couple of examples from the Moat Mountain type pegmatites in New Hampshire, and some from the Orongo in Namibia that we've looked at. But in addition to that, I want to include some myelolytic pegmatites that are kind of very different from the ones that we've been looking at and talking about. And I'll mention these LCT type myelolytic pegmatites that are found in. So these pegmatites that I want to include in this talk are the beryllium lithium boron pegmatites that are the result of anataxis. So these are segregations of anatectic melts that are from metamorphic rocks from the migmatites, and they represent a melting of the felsic portions of the migmatites. And we'll talk about some of those as well. So again, this is the new proposal of the classification of pegmatites by Mike Wise, Axel, and myself, and it's in press. Hopefully, you'll be seeing it soon. All right. So now, oops, there we go. So we'll start out with the New Hampshire myelolytic segregation pegmatites. These are related to the White Mountain batholith and some other related intrusions, but a large number of them are related to the White Mountain batholith in New Hampshire. And this is along a failed arm of a triple junction that's related to the breakup of Pangea. And so we have these Jurassic and Cretaceous plutons that were intruded in this area. And there are many segregation pegmatites associated with these that are quite well known and in the New England area in the US. Here's the White Mountain batholith. It's a composite batholith, and it intrudes volcanics. The reds here are volcanics. So this is a composite batholith that's composed principally of the Osceola and the Conway granites. And within these granites, all these spots here are segregation pegmatites that have formed in these, and we get these myelolytic pegmatites. Also, in the Ossipee complex, which is to the south of the White Mountain batholith. Here we have some of the segregation pegmatites, myelolytic pegmatites that range from these small ones of a few centimeters and to meter-sized ones like these two here. And what you can see in this image here is the granitic texture out here, and then the beginning of pegmatitic texture right around some of the minerals that are found here. Topaz, of course. These are small crystals in comparison to ones that you've been seeing, and not so dramatic as the ones from the Volyn deposits, but we have topaz and smoky quartz crystals in these myrtleic pegmatites. Smoky quartz, and some of these can get up to a meter in length. And one of the things I want to emphasize is that there is fluorite slide as we move to Africa, Southern Africa, and the Orongo mountain pegmatites that are here in South Africa. And these also are related to rifting, the breakup of Gondwana, excuse me. And we have the intrusion of these magma centers, including the Spitzkopfers, and they are Cretaceous in age. And so this complex, the Orongo, is a caldera complex, and here we have the volcanics in the center that have been intruded by the Orongo granite in yellow, and the sites of abundant minerals are these spots here on the south, around the southern edge and the northeast. These are where we have abundant minerals and the production of a lot of gem material. And here are some examples of these myrtleic pegmatites, some that are up to about a meter, and they're smaller ones, but have many like this size, a few that are big enough for a couple of people to get into. Here's Peter in one of the larger myrtleic pegmatites. He was in there. This is a place where Jeremy Avite had been found, and he was in there looking for that. Here you see some of the minerals that are found. We have lots of beautiful aquamarines, although very small in comparison to the chamber pegmatites and minerals. We have topaz as well. What is unusual about the Orongo mountain myrtleic pegmatites is that there's a lot of tourmaline in the form of schorl, lots of beautiful schorl. And that is atypical because in most myrtleic pegmatites, we don't have the boron to produce the schorls. Excuse me. We have proposed that this boron is the result of contamination of these melts when they were passing through the Marne metasediments. And we got the contamination of a lot of boron, which ended up in these final stages in the myrtleic pegmatites. Again, we have fluorite, not abundant, but it's there, and I think it's an important aspect of these pegmatites, showing us that fluorine was an important flux in the formation of these pegmatites. So now I want to kind of shift gears and do something that's very different, and let's talk about these beryllium, boron, lithium pegmatites that are in Maine and that are myrtleic. So they fall into this category, but they're not the typical what we normally think of when we're talking about myrtleic pegmatites. But I think it's important to put these into that category. Here we're looking at some images of these type of lithium-rich pegmatites in Oxford County, Maine. These images are from Mount Mica. This is the famous Laurel Merrill pocket from 1904. You see Lauren Merrill in there holding a tourmaline crystal. These other images are from the recent mining era that started in about 2004. These are some small pockets in the beginning. They got bigger when our pocket fairy, Frank Parham, is always there to look into these pegmatites. And here he is. Here are some images inside the pockets, the myrtleic pockets in these pegmatites. Here you see the beautiful tourmaline crystals, lepidolite, spodumene, and some of these only contain quartz. These are the tourmalines that are produced from this pegmatite, very famous for 200 years of production from Mount Mica. And we have a new player here in the Havey pegmatite, and it has abundant marls also, and it's been in production now for about 10 or 12 years, and is producing a lot of marls. As you can see here are 4 marls along the wall of the pegmatite, some big enough to get into to mine. And what they're mining in here are tourmalines like this that are in this altered albite. Here's another pocket that still has tourmaline showing in the bottom. This is a close-up of this showing the beautiful bicolored tourmaline. So these then are the marlitic LCT type pegmatites. So I don't have all these wonderful photographs of the Ukraine. I've borrowed some of these from Peter, and just to show the scale, the enormous scale of these marls and these chambered pegmatites, and in the Volodovsk area here, you see several in one pocket and another one giant pocket. You've seen this map before. There are hundreds of pegmatites. This shows just the central area and the distribution of them there. And here is a picture that Sevalov took of the giant chambered number 521 pegmatite. It's measured 15 meters tall, 30 meters long, 25 meters wide, and 2.5 tons of beryl. You've heard about that and seen some of these fantastic crystals that have come from there. This is from Peter Lichtberg's 2009 paper, figure 38. So when I was there, I was there twice. I was in 1995 with Peter, and then again in 2013. And I was underground, and here is a picture with Sevalov, his son Alexander, who you've seen earlier, and Peter. And here's Alexander in the pocket that we worked while I was underground, and looking at picking in the pocket floor for crystals. And so I was really happy to be back above ground. So you can see me with a big smile on my face, not only because I got to see these wonderful marlitic pegmatites, these huge chambers, but because I actually came back up. It was, here I am, overweight, out of shape, and up from sea level, and in this very low oxygen environment in the mine. I was struggling while I was there, unfortunately. And here you've seen much better pictures than I have. These are some of the pictures that Peter holding these fantastic barrels and topaz, bicolored topaz, smoky quartz, giant smoky quartz crystals, regrowth on some of the broken crystals where they were laying and growing. Here's some of the barrel in place, and of course the spectacular heliodores there. And again, fluorite. We'll talk a little bit about what's important in pocket formation. So what we've got to have is volatile X solution. And the way that happens is by fractional crystallization, decompression, and also by depletion of water-soluble enhancing fluxing components, such as boron, lithium, fluorine, and phosphorus. So let's look at decompression. If we look at the rongos, this is likely the kind of scenario that we had there. So we had a caldera complex, and what happens is you get a doming, ring fractures, and then you get a venting of the material. And if these vents get down to the magma chamber, you get explosive eruption. And this then is like a Nuit Ardent. So when this pressure reduction happens, we start to degas the magma. We get bubbles in the upper portion here, and they come out with these eruptions, but also some are left in the upper portion where the magma is viscous enough that the bubbles are retained. So that's the idea of the orongos, and just then to kind of show you some examples of this. This is the cliff wall up in the granite on the east side of the complex, and these two areas shown by these arrows are where there's abundant minerals. This is a close-up of this area here. So my students that are up here visiting one of the miners who had a temporary home in one of these minerals. He had a bedroll in there and a stove, and he would stay there days on end working these minerals. You can see the debris down here. But look at this. Look at the abundance of all of these marlitic cavities. Not all of them are gem producers, but this is kind of the idea. To me, this is like the head of a beer that's frozen. So there are areas like this, and this is the result then of decompression. In the marlitic cavities, we are mainly dealing with fractional crystallization. So in a little cartoon here, we have a pegmatite dike. We have crystallization from the walls inward, and the main minerals that are forming in the Oxford County pegmatites are quartz, muscovite, and albite. There's hardly any K spar in the outer portions of the pegmatites, only up next to some of the pockets. So what happens is that these minerals are removing silicon, aluminum, potassium, and sodium, and the incompatibles and water are being fractionated towards the center portion of the dike. And when the percentage of water exceeds about 12%, we develop another phase, exhausts out, and this forms the pockets and into which these crystals grow. This is another way of looking at it. If we start out with a melt with 2% water and allow it to crystallize, we see after about 80% crystallization, we get 12% water, and that is when we start to dissolve these bubbles. So it's in this region right in here where these pegmatites are forming, and this gives us the pegmatitic textures and the concentrations of these incompatible elements, including the boron and lithium, fluorine, rubidium, cesium, etc., in these minerals. So for these to form, then they are aided from, in addition to fractional crystallization, we have the effect of depletion of the fluxing components. So if we have these elements present in the melt, boron, lithium, fluorine, that increases the solubility of water in the melt. And then if during the late stages, we start to crystallize minerals that remove these elements, such as tourmaline, lepidolite, spodumene, and bligonite, that then promotes the release of additional water. So it's a combination of fractional crystallization and depletion of fluxing components that gives us these water that we need to make these minerals, because the melts in the beginning don't have much more than about 2% water in them, according to our calculations. So we'll finish up with this with a kind of a model for the formation of these pegmatites, these marlitic pegmatites. First of all, you've got to have a melt that contains sufficient fluxing components for late stage exsolution to occur. And in the marlitic pegmatites, the classic marlitic pegmatites, fluorine is important, and we find it associated with most of these marlitic pegmatites. The pressure regime must not be too high. It must be generally less than 3 kilobars, as exsolution is inversely proportional to pressure. Pockets are most abundant in shallow level pegmatites and virtually absent in pegmatites formed under high pressure conditions. Fractional crystallization and late stage formation of minerals that remove fluxing components result in the exsolution of late stage flux-rich, supercritical, high-density aqueous fluids that form minerals, especially in the LCT type marlitic pegmatites. And it's in these minerals that the gem crystals and minerals-rich and incompatible elements grow. So we allow these minerals to grow from an interaction between the silicate melt and the dissolved fluid and the protopocket. and there's a lot of exchange of ions through that medium, and that allows us to grow rather pristine crystals, gem quality crystals, and these minerals that are enriched in incompatible elements. So we'll end up with that, and I thank you for your attention, and maybe I can answer questions. Thank you very much. I apologize again for my poor internet connection.
Thanks a lot for your report. It was really very informative and very, very interesting. If you have any questions to our speaker, you can ask him or write him in a chat. What will be available for you. So if you have any questions, you can ask.